had one of our guests on, Jason Fry, talking about the Celtics are going to win their 19th championship. So what have you got to say about that?
Who this Jason Fry character is, you know, he was talking about doing hard shit. Well, his prediction is bullshit. Okay. All right. The flu got me last week. Powered through
You
that.
don't look much better.
Yeah, well, on my bad days, I look a hell of a lot better than you.
Are you ready for the joke?
I was about to introduce the joke. You jumped the damn gun again.
I'm feeling Caribbean here in this.
You're feeling
Caribbean. That's the word I just made up.
What the
Caribbean. I'm feeling Caribbean.
Folks, we are the most entertaining thing on the world, in the world right now. I think you're trying to cover your own ass right now and just not admit
you were wrong. In the country.
I think you're just trying to cover your ass right now and don't.
You know what? I got a big ass, so
that's a lot of
cover. A lot of cover. It take a blanket, damn it.
More like a drape.
Did you just pull a drape? Is that so I can open it up when I need to go? You know,
you're getting too deep into this. Rivalries make sports great, but they got to be on the same level. And I'm sorry, Angel Reese ain't on the level of Caitlin Clark. Like, it's not Magic Bird. If you don't want to commit to it, take your ass and be a PE All-Star.
First off, you need to get your facts effing straight.
How do you like me now? How do you like me now? What? You're the coach. Shut up, dude. I won 5 Super Bowls, damn it. How dare you call the Cowboys a shit team? Watch the Cowboys. It'll be fun, they said. Bloody fucking hell, it was no fun. It was like riding a train around one of the Kardashians' asses, and you just disappear into this abyss of ass. Somehow he talked about buttholes that made me hungry for a PBJ sandwich. It's 35-7, and it's only 7 because you just scored. Shut up. Are you telling me coaches like Coach Popovich does plays in spaghetti noodles?
The thing about Coach Popovich is he actually liked to use popcorn with super glue.
Popcorn with super glue?
Yeah, he would put super glue little magnets on the bottom, and then he would arrange them on the board, and he would like color them different colors, and that would signify the opponents. And yeah.
Are those the players?
I don't want to give away any industry secrets on that particular thing, but yeah, I'm just gonna say you gotta. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm saying no more.
And they're playing with sticks, and they're playing with a little puck all the time.
Expert analysis right there. They play with sticks and pucks. Talking about last names, Stankhoven. He put the stank on them, and that was terrible. I'm sorry. I'm going to look directly into the camera up here, which I hardly ever do. I want to apologize to y'all on behalf of my bloodline right now, because that was awful. Oh, my God. You're getting worse. All right.
Trying to grow the game, man. Global game.
These people, they don't give a damn.
Well, I don't really know, but it drives me nuts. You're almost going to laugh. I can see it. Almost fixing to lose it. It drives me nuts.
Oh, man.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Yes. Your ass better call somebody. Tell them we're on the air, because we are the most entertaining thing on the internet right now. At least that's our humble opinion. I am Casey, the Remix Schedule. Welcome to On Time Sports Talk. And the bald and the beautiful next to me is my illustrious father, Eddie, the Original Schedule. Let them know how you're doing, Pops.
Doing okay. I'm just making sure that I got a mosquito
fight earlier, and I didn't want to have like this big giant boil because then people would be looking at it. So I don't think I see it. I think I'm okay. Think
Yeah,
I'm all
you're
right.
good. I don't see anything, and if I notice anything, we can text Angie. She can powder you up in the commercial break, and
No, she just slapped me and say get over it. So that's kind of what would happen right there. So
oh man, lot to get to. In this last week, so much happened. We absolutely grinded that draft show last week. Made it almost the entire first round. Then we got to pick 22. And by the way, Linda agrees that you are lustrous. By the way, I think she's impressed by my use of the English language and my vast, wide knowledge of vocabulary. But yeah, so much. So we got the rest of the draft winners, losers. What did the Cowboys do? Did we like what the Cowboys did? Holy shit, I was right on Shedeur Sanders. Shocker there. We're going to get into Shedeur Sanders and kind of the Bush League moves. Someone did something to him. We got NCAA football, NIL debacles. We got LPGA, the Chevron Championship, craziest Indian I've ever seen. The NBA playoffs. Holy shit, I was right about Luka and the Lakers again. Okay, I don't know. I'm just tooting my own horn here. But old man gets one or two things right every now and again. But
one or two. Huh.
And then we got Bill Belichick, a man who's closer to your age than my age, with his 24-year-old girlfriend. We're going to get into the craziness that is that. And a little bit of high school sports. We're going to get my take on multi-sport athletes as well as parents in sports. Inspired by the Sean Salisbury show, by the way. I think he has a new podcast called Unpaved.
He's still on the radio?
Yeah, he's on the big time radio, iHeartRadio, in Houston, but he just started his podcast. I'm giving her free promotion over here, but I think it's on like a platform called Rumble or something, a new platform. But
I used to listen to Sean in San Diego. He used to be out there for a while.
Yeah, I've been trying to. When his co-host left, I was like, "Hey, man, I feel like we'd be a good team." And he never got back to me, so he does not feel the same. But it is what it is. I still love you, Sean. I love your takes. Your tweets are amazing. Get the brown off my nose. All right.
You got the Stankoven on your nose right now.
The Stankoven, who's no longer a star. I might have to take that one out of the intro, by the way. He got traded.
I don't know. I thought that was pretty good.
That stinks. That was terrible, too, by the way. That was not a good joke. But speaking of a joke, the man, the myth, the legend himself is going to don his hilariousness on you, and I find it absolutely, utterly ridiculous and not funny. He hasn't made me laugh yet. He did get me to smile on the Drive Me Nuts one. I will admit that. But go ahead, let the people know. Let's hear it. And I might have a rebuttal one, by the way.
Well, since we're talking about rage and you almost got in a fight in the parking lot, you know why it doesn't hurt if someone throws a Coke at your head? You know why it doesn't hurt?
Because it doesn't pop? I don't know.
Because it's a soft drink.
Hmm.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, solid there. Solid there. Do you know the cheapest type of meat?
The cheapest type of meat?
Yep.
Well, it would be Spam.
No, it's deer balls because they're under $1.
That's meat.
Well, I didn't say you had to eat it, but people eat buffalo testicles all the time. But
that's Rocky Mountain oysters.
Yeah, and what? All right, I just wanted to have one to throw back at you. All right, Linda thought it was funny.
Okay,
whatever.
Okay, well, no, I think she thought mine was funny, not hers.
Okay, don't even play.
She said, "Okay, gross."
No, that's bullcrap because she's seen the video I got that from and she laughed hysterically. So she's lying right now. All right. She's just
I don't know.
playing.
She might have thought it was gross.
She just wants to be nice because the wedding is less than a month away. Holy crap.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. So, all right, let's get into the draft, y'all. Oh, man. Crazy draft. What'd you think? Do you want to start with Shador, or is that the most obvious?
No, I don't want to start with Shador. It's been a Shador Kalama Dama ding dong all the time with Shador. And to me, it's just the craziness I saw this week about this whole thing of trying to figure out why he didn't go or whatever. I'll get to my point in a little bit, but I don't think there were any real big surprises at the beginning. I think everything kind of went down the way most people have predicted. I know a lot of the picks that we had out there, and I called quite a few of them. Now, Booker to the Cowboys, I think, was this very safe pick. It's a good pick. I think he's going to help out that offensive line. But damn, how many Tylers can you have on one offensive line?
Well, apparently we're going for 5 because there's 3 already.
Yeah. So I think the big surprise to me in the first round is when the Giants came back in, and I think everybody thought, oh, they're coming back in there. Now here goes Sanders. But then the fact that they take a different quarterback in Dart from Mississippi. Is he from Mississippi? I thought he was Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's what I thought. ESPN's got it wrong. They got him listed Mississippi, but it's Ole Miss. So I think that was probably one of the biggest surprises there. And the Giants are definitely going to be a team that's, to me, it's going to be in turmoil, just because they have a lame duck coach. Everybody kind of knows he's on his way out, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think Houston made a lot of trades. I think they made 6 trades. All of their players were from trades in this entire draft.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think they got some receivers which they needed. So Houston did a pretty good job. I think Cam Ward going to the Titans, that was not a surprise at all. I think that's definitely going to help out the Titans. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. And then, of course, the Jaguars getting Travis Hunter. Also, the question's going to be there. Where do you play him? Are you going to play him both ways and give him a pitch count, so to speak? Or are you going to really strictly work on him playing corner or playing receiver? I think you probably want to lean toward corner more than you do receiver, based on the Jaguars and what they need. But of course, when you think about it,
a team there at the beginning, the Giants. I thought the Giants actually had a great draft overall. Abdul Carter, now paired with Kayvon Thibodeau, is a scary bookends if Abdul Carter lives up to it. We all know draft picks are 50-50, right? Especially first round. So that Thibodeau, Carter in the NFC East, you got to get to the quarterback. Jackson Dart, I know they're saying he had some similarities because, their head coach was in Buffalo, so they kind of saw them. Some similarities to Josh Allen. I don't think he's as athletic as Josh Allen, but I think he has a little bit of not as arm talent, but a step down from Josh Allen's arm talent. They picked Darius Alexander out of Toledo, small school guy or a smaller Division I guy to help out that line to go next to Dexter Lawrence. And they picked your boy that you wanted at running back, Scatterboo.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those first 4 picks are really solid. Then they get some depth on the offensive line with Marcus Mabeau. They get a tight end who's going to fill out the roster, and then a cornerback. We'll see if they ultimately pan out and do anything as second round picks. But I do like what the Giants did. It looked like it was a step in the right direction, and I feel like they got the draft right for the first time in a long time.
Well, yeah, I can't disagree with that, but I'm also going to say that I think Cleveland actually did a pretty good job in the draft. If you think about everything that went on with Sanders, they just kept making their picks. They kept adding depth. They even took another quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Gabriel out of Oregon. So they added quite a few pieces, and still got Sanders, which everybody was saying that's who they were going to get. But the Browns, we may see a surprise from them just in the amount of players, because they got Judkins, the running back. They got a couple of running backs. They got the one for Tennessee also, and still got Sanders in the end. So there's going to be some quarterback competition going on there. So I think they did a pretty good job. I think that the Cowboys did okay. Um, I think there's still some questions that are going to. Now, I'll be honest, I had forgotten about Blue at Texas. I obviously watched him being an Aggies fan since he's on the rival Longhorns. I actually think he's a very good running back. So I think they may have gotten lucky there. But I think everybody thought that the Cowboys would take a running back a lot higher. But we're also forgetting that they got the one free agent. I can't think of his name right now. Who's working hard. So I think the Cowboys actually did okay. They usually don't mess up too much in the draft.
Yeah,
I think
the Cowboys. I mean, you saw me last week screaming for the Tyler Warren the first round, the tight end, right? That's who I really, really wanted him to take, because I think he is just a massive difference maker. But the guard, as we said last week, safe pick. You got to win the game in the trenches first. So Tyler Booker, when you watch that tape on him, he is a mauler. He's a guy who wants to be great. I think he fits in perfectly. He's a plug and play guy, has been said 1,000 times already. And he's going to be I think he's going to be that right guard. I think he's the next great guard in the line of great guards at right guard for us. I didn't know anything about the kid out of Boston College, Aruka. That's a name we're gonna have to practice. But the kid out of Boston College, ACC Player of the Year. I really like his bend off the edge. Like, he has moves and he has counter moves and he has a lot of. I'm not saying he's gonna be this guy, but he has that bend horizontally like a DeMarcus Ware. So his tape reminded me of DeMarcus Ware coming out of Troy. I wanted him to go wide receiver or running back in that third round. I know there was a run on running backs in the third round before they picked. From what I've seen, a rebel from East Carolina. What I don't like, I like what I've seen out of him. What I don't like is he's coming off of a knee injury, like some of his other corners in the cornerback room. And you pointed out Blue. Blue is fast. He's 4.3 speed. He has some fumbling issues at Texas. So I think he's a early career. I think he's a lot like Tony Pollard was early in his career, or a Felix Jones type. Shamar James, the linebacker, adds depth. And then they added, you kind of go down the road. Phil Maffa, the running back out of Clemson, is like, if Blue is the lightning, Maffa is the thunder. We'll see if anything happens out of him. But they filled their holes on the team, but they had more holes than draft picks. So there was no help in the wide receiver room, which I think is a problem because CeeDee Lamb still doesn't have a lot of help. He's going to be doubled all day long. And
So what do you think about the rumor of Amari Cooper coming back?
I think Amari Cooper fills a role, but I just don't think he's a number one or number two receiver anymore. He's past his athletic prime. I think he'll be solid, but if you had two guys out there who could take the attention away from him, I think he's a chain mover. He's not a game breaker like he was when they first traded for him. So I think
and that might just be enough of what they need to a certain extent. But I still think, that was one of the areas that they just continue to not address, either in free agency or in the draft.
Yeah, free agency they obviously didn't, and they didn't do it in the trade market because our 4th round pick was Jonathan Mingo. The guy who can't even get on the field for us or the Carolina Panthers, who had like no receivers last year. And so ultimately, I do like what the Cowboys did in the draft. I do from top to bottom. It filled a lot of needs. You needed a cheap defensive end to go opposite of Micah Parsons because you're about to pay Micah Parsons. So you get a 2nd round pick for the next 4 years if he pans out. You have Nealon in there, and you have Sam Williams, who will be coming back from injury. Like a lot of people forgot about Sam Williams. I thought he was going to take a huge step forward this year before he got injured. So you have, I think, a defensive end rotation that is solid. Defensive tackle still a little suspect, in my opinion. But you got your corner help because Jordan Lewis left, right? You got what you think is a running back by committee again. Maybe one of those guys can step up. But again, you don't have the wide receiver. And that's why I was cheering for Tyler Warren, because to me, he's a wide receiver tight end and one, and you just throw it in his area and he catches it. He's bigger than everybody else. So that's why I was cheering for him. But I also understood they needed to solidify the offensive line too. And so solid job. I give it an A draft overall. Can't give it A+ because they didn't get the wide receiver or the game breaker playmaker. But yeah, I thought
I'm going to give them a B+. But the other team in Texas, I thought, did pretty good with all their trades. I think Houston addressed some needs by getting Higgins out of Iowa State, and with the 2nd pick, a decent wide receiver. They got Noel out of once again Iowa State. Two players together that know each other. We'll see if that helps. They got an offensive lineman. They got the running back out of USC, Marks. They addressed some needs. They also got a backup quarterback. So I think the Texans actually continue to trade back, add up draft picks, and I think because a lot of people, I think a lot of Texans fans were not happy when they traded out of the 1st round, but they still managed to get, to me, a couple decent wide receivers from Iowa State. Obviously, Iowa State had a good year.
I think what the Texans know is I think what the Texans know and what they're trying to prepare to do, and I could be off base on this, but they know they're going to have to pay CJ Stroud here pretty soon. And that's going to be around $60-70 million a year by the time he's up for it. They know they're going to need draft picks to build their roster because once you pay them, you got to have other guys on the cheap. And so that's what I was saying about the defensive end for the Cowboys. You're about to pay Micah. You just paid CeeDee. You just paid Dak. You're going to end up having to pay Tyler Smith at some point. And you start having these guys come up for their contracts. Well, now you got to start filling those gaps with cheaper guys, and hopefully those draft picks pan out. So I think the Texans are doing something smart by gathering assets in like next year's draft, because they're eventually going to be up against it, just like every team is with a franchise quarterback that isn't on their first contract. I want to get back to the Browns. I thought the Browns had a decent draft, but when you leave with 2 quarterbacks, there's 5 quarterbacks in that quarterback room right now. There's Deshaun Watson. Okay, well, she's probably not going to play next year. All right, because of how late he hurt his knee. You have Joe Flacco. They traded for Kenny Pickett. They drafted Dylan Gabriel, and you have Shedeur Sanders. Someone's not going to make the team at a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't make the team?
Well, I think it's going to be the first name you mentioned.
Flacco?
But, no.
Watson?
Yes. I think Watson's not going to play. I think they're done with him. Unfortunately, they're married to him with this contract. And so for me, I think it's going to be Watson. I think he's going to be the one. He may be on the sideline, but he's going to be in street clothes. I just don't think he's going to be part of the active roster.
That's what I'm saying. He's going to be on injured reserve. He's not going to be on the field, but that still leaves you with 4. So
yeah, but I think Flacco is probably.
I think he's their day 1 starter.
Good. Could be. But we know the Browns to kind of mess up the quarterback thing. But I also think, based on what happened to Sanders, I think he's going to have a lot to prove. And quite frankly, I've said this. I've said it on X and on Facebook. I said, I hope that he proves them wrong. But let's go ahead and get into that conversation. My whole thing of what I've listened to this week, first off, the whole thing about the racial crap, it was bogus. That to me is just crap.
Correct.
It is not. It is not. It had nothing to do with.
Or I'm sorry, black.
It had nothing. It had nothing to do with his race. And I heard so many people want to go to that this week, and my whole thing too. And some of the well-known commentators talked about this. First off, the first pick in the draft was a black quarterback. So let's shut up about the black quarterback not being pushed to the side when the very first pick in the draft was a black quarterback.
And the most successful quarterbacks in the league right now are black. Mahomes, even though some people say he's not black enough for him. Lamar Jackson.
So that's a whole nother discussion. I hope one day we get past that point where that's the first thing that people think of, because and the whole thing is they said, well, there's a lot of collusion going on. So let me get this straight. Your damn theory is all these rich ass white people who run these teams with these huge egos. And I only say they're white because that's what everybody was trying to say, that they all got together, had a meeting with the coaches and the scouts, because they're part of it, and everybody agreed to shun one guy. That's their theory. That was the stupidest shit I heard all damn week. How about the fact that he didn't interview well? How about the fact that there were problems with his personality? How about the fact that he just wasn't worthy of what didn't win? These other quarterbacks that went hot, like Cam Ward, won games. But you don't see them retiring his number.
Well, I think they delayed that, by the way.
There's just so much. Yeah, I agree that it has a lot to do with Dion. And what I mean by that is that it's a lot of feeling that they're entitled to a certain pick or a certain place they're supposed to be. But at the end of the day, these people are making millions and millions of dollars of investments in these players. So they got to believe that they're going to be good. And the reason Sanders dropped is because they didn't think he was going to be worth spending that kind of money on a quarterback that really barely has a winning record. That's my take.
So ultimately, yeah, but so I was, there was three of us at the start of the show, and y'all kind of looked at me weird when I said I don't think he's a first round talent. I thought he was going to go in the 3rd to 5th round. That was my prediction. I think his arm talent is not top tier as far as arm strength. He's very accurate. I believe he's the most accurate quarterback in college football. But do you want a person with a perceived attitude problem? Do you want a person an entitlement issue? Because the kid grew up in a 10,000 foot square house his whole life. He's been coached by his dad his whole life, and he didn't have an agent, and he was taking his dad's advice. You're going to see a theme with some of my stuff, bad dad advice, and that's bullet point number 1 on bad dad advice, is saying my kid's going to go here, or there's places I wouldn't let him go. I agree with you. It's not a race thing. It's not a collusion thing. 32 owners did not get on a Zoom call and said, everyone, let's teach Shedeur a lesson. He did it to himself. It was the bad interviews. It was the attitude. It was how he carried himself. And a lot of people want to say, oh, well, he carries himself. Are you hating on because he carries himself like a black guy or an African-American or whatever? No, he carries himself like an arrogant dude, like an entitled, spoiled kid. And you don't want that type of dude leading your team, because that's not what you look for. He didn't do himself any favor with the interview process, and so there's just a lot there that he never worked out. He never threw. He only interviewed certain teams that he thought that were high enough in the draft to pick him. So he didn't even interview with most of the teams.
So here's my hope. My hope is this was a wake-up call. That this was a wake-up call to say, I'm going to have to put in the work, and I'm going to have to prove myself. Because quite
100%.
frankly, and this is no, I think Deion Sanders is a stand-up guy. I think he's a good coach. He's a good person. He's trying to do what's best for his kid. But I think there's a point where you go overboard sometimes.
Something I've learned
too hard.
Something I've learned in coaching is when it comes to people's kids, never trust the parent. Never trust the parent. You can't trust the parent. No matter how good a relationship you have with them, no matter how long you've known them, no matter the good of the relationship, you can't trust that parent when it's their own kid, because their view is skewed, because they are biased. So we might get into a little bit of that later in the show, but ultimately he slid because of bad advice from Deion, his own actions, and he overall he's not a great talent. He doesn't move very well. Like I mentioned, the arm strength, a lot of his passes were short and bubble screens.
Well, here's what
didn't win,
a lot of people
pointed out. They didn't win.
What a lot of people were arguing was, well, he's better than Dart. Maybe he is, but Dart may have had a better attitude toward the interview and what he was talking about, because that's a big part of it. Because a lot of times what people don't see is that you're looking for a team fit. One of the reasons, if you go back when the Cowboys drafted Dak back in the day, they picked him because they liked his attitude, not that he was some great quarterback who lit it up. They picked him because they thought he would fit into the team's culture. Correct. And so this to me is, and I've said it and I'll continue to say it, I hope this is a wake-up call, because I think the kid has the talent. I think the kid's got the arm strength, but and this whole thing about he's not coachable, that's a bunch of bullshit. He's been coached his whole life, but he's going to have to learn to listen to a different coach. That's the difference. And just like you said, is paying attention to your parent all the time isn't all. It's a skewed view. It's a biased view
Now,
because
I
it's
will
your
say,
kid.
I will add this. One thing I heard this week that did make sense about this on not taking him, especially in the first round, is what was the rumor last year is Jerry Jones wanted Dion, right? And people were talking to Dion. If you take Shador in the first round, let's say the Giants took him instead of Abdul Carter, okay? All right, which would have
What
been
will we hear all year?
right. You'll hear this. Oh, they're going to fire Dable and they're going to bring in Dion because you're invested in Shador at a high level with a first round pick. That to me makes sense. If you're an organization, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin's been on the hot seat, right? And you take Shador at 21 and then y'all aren't successful, you finally get the ammunition to quote unquote get rid of Mike Tomlin, then Shador's the quarterback. Dion, come on. So if you're a head coach, you don't want to put that pressure on your own organization and yourself and put your job in question for a guy who's not even in the building. That made sense to me. But the collusion, the race baiting, the all that type of stuff was garbage. And I agree with you. I hope he proves people wrong. I hope he is the savior of Cleveland because Cleveland needs an effing savior after decades and decades of football purgatory. They need someone. Hopefully it's Shador, and he got a little bit of humble pie, and he comes back and with a vengeance when he gets his opportunity. Because I do think Flacco will be their game one starter. I think they'll see how it goes with Flacco, and if they end up with a slow start, then it's going to be the Sanders show or whoever the next quarterback they want to go to. Period. That's all I got.
I think it was just the perfect storm of everything coming together that caused this. And of course I saw Mel Kiper losing his damn mind, and that's understandable. He's like 80 something years old. So
didn't he say he would quit doing the draft if Jimmy Clausen didn't work out?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. He didn't quit, did he?
But,
because that paycheck from ESPN
and I have a lot of respect for Mel Kiper. He's been doing it a long time, but him throwing a fit because it didn't go the way that he thought it would.
Even his own draft mates on the table were getting pissed at him. Like, shut up.
Yeah. I wish we were at a point in society and this is totally out of sports realm. I get that. To whereas it's more about the person's actions, the person's ability, not how the person looks. And to me, that's what made this ludicrous to me, was that it was about all of the things. It had nothing to do with the skin color. It had to do with the fact of all the things that we've mentioned. And that there just wasn't, if someone was in desperate need for a certain quarterback, then yes, absolutely, he probably would have went higher. But we didn't see a whole lot of quarterbacks go in the first round. And so to me, it just was kind of a perfect storm of a guy who has a little bit of some things that were going against him. But I do think it's like I said, I do hope he proves them wrong. And I hope it's a wake up call for him that he's going to have to work, because the NFL is, and we've seen it. We've seen great quarterbacks come out of college that have won championships that are just, man, they can't miss. They're going to be awesome. And they turn out to be garbage because there's a lot more work in the NFL. A lot of people think you're going to make more money. It's going to be, now I'm a professional, whatever. Well, there's a lot of it, the quarterback position, especially, there's a lot expected of you that you're going to be the first one at the door in the morning. You're going to be the last one leaving. You're going to be studying film because it is your job not only to know your offense, but you got to read the defense. Because if you can't read the defense, I don't care if you know the offensive playbook, you're going to throw a bunch of interceptions and your ass is going to be on the bench. So if you don't put in the work.
You know, you mentioned Mel Kiper. So like quarterbacks he missed on. Will Levis. He had him in the first round, thought he was going to be a guy. Malik Willis had him as his number one quarterback in 2022, got drafted in the third round. You know, I mean, the list goes on and on. Jacob Eason.
Well, Pfeiffer, here's my thing with him. He's very good at it. And I'm not going to, like I said, have a ton of respect for the man. But when it comes to quarterbacks, he just doesn't seem to be as on his game as he is with most of the other players.
Well,
that's my observation.
Well, one, I think it's easier to evaluate other guys, but he didn't even have Mahomes as a first-round pick. He had Mahomes rated behind Mitchell Trubisky. I'm going to say it again. Mitchell Trubisky and Deshaun Watson in 2017.
Well, and to Watson's credit, Watson did do well the first couple of years until his back started hurting him and he needed a massage. So,
well, yeah.
I'm just saying, love you a long time.
Yeah, I just like I don't know. He was all about, you know, Jimmy Clausen back in the day, and you know, he called it on Jimmy Clausen, David Carr, Mike Williams, Jamarcus Russell, Andre Wadsworth, just to name a few that were massive misses on his part. But I will agree with you later in the draft, and guys that ultimately need a little more in depth. But I also think quarterback is the hardest one to project into the league. I will put that caveat out there. All right, let's move off the draft. But let's deal with football. Let's go NCAA, Tennessee football. All right, you had the quarterback from Tennessee say, "I want more money." And the story is a little aged. I think it happened I think it may happen the day we were on the air or at the end or maybe Wednesday before we came on. But we were all about the draft last week. And I did want to talk about this. Is the quarterback from – and by the way, his dad told him to do this. So more bad dad advice here. Hold out. Get $4 million. He was going to get $2 million from Tennessee. And kudos to the Tennessee coach. He said, we ain't playing this game. Bye. You go. And he signs with UCLA, I do believe, for $1.75. So he signed for less than what he was going to make. So once again, bad advice. Leaves, thinks he's going to get more money, gets less money. And the fact that he can even do that drives me insane right now with the rules. The NCAA has to get a hold of this. There has to start being an agreed, and I think all the coaches are coming around. I think athletic directors are starting to come around to this too. There's got to be a cap for the position. There has to be compensation given back to the school if the kid leaves on his own accord, and there has to be some sort of rules for transfer. But this situation with the Tennessee quarterback was embarrassing. It was like the UNLV kid last year during the season who quit on his team because he said he didn't get paid soon enough from UNLV. So NIL, transfer portal, I think it's been the worst thing for college football pretty much ever. I think it's the state of the game. You're starting to see coaches. Nick Saban said, F this. I don't want to deal with this. He won't admit it. He won't say that's why I retired. He said he's out. Coach K said, F this. I ain't dealing with this. You got legendary coaches, 10-year coaches who would be at that place forever until they die saying, I'm out. And ultimately, you got to rein it in. and it's not certain. And you got coaches saying we can't build anything. We can't build culture. We can't build a tradition. We can't build a program when, there's guys leaving during the NCAA tournament while their team is still playing. They're saying, I'm going here. Like, how are you supposed to concentrate on what the hell are you doing on the basketball court when you got 18 people calling saying, hey, we'll give you this. Hey, come over here. I know you got a game Friday night, but as soon as that's over, you can come over to so-and-so university. That's bullshit. And so I can't stand it. I think it's actually, I think a lot of people love college football and college athletics for the tradition. You get to invest in these guys for 2, 3, 4 years, and that is gone. And the product is suffering for it. It's a money machine. I get that, but it's got to be reined in to get back competitive normalcy, I guess you would say. Compensate the players. We're past that. Amateurism or being an amateur athlete is gone. It really is. But you also, your good football teams are spending $35-40 million a year now just on personnel to field a team.
Yeah, I agree. And I was reading some of the suggestions for how they would regulate this, but it has to be done. I mean, there's different ideas on this. But something has to be done. Whether you start making it where as a freshman they don't see the money until the second year. But see, this is where we get into the same thing that they had before, and what brought this all on is that if you're using my likeness, my number, or whatever, you're using my name. So I should get compensated for that. Most court systems agree with that. Because that's a free market system. So I think that they're going to have to structure, it's going to be around some contracts and put some regulation in there to put some limits and some guardrails up. Because right now there's just, anytime you try to do the right thing, and I think that's ultimately at the end of the day, that's what was worked on and tried to do the right thing. Yes, these kids should be allowed to make money because the colleges are making tons of money off their name and their number. So I think ultimately that was the goal. But the problem is when you put a slippery slope type system in place, the exploitation of it, as soon as they figure out what that is, that's what's going to happen. And that's what we've seen with this whole Tennessee. And that ain't going to be the last unless they do something. And it's going to be, unfortunately, it's the big name kids that, might have a future in the NFL, but we may see they're actually, to me, a kid who plays for his college for 3 or 4 years wins something like, let's take Peyton Manning when he played for Tennessee. He was at one college, he was tracked the whole time. This guy can run a team, he's going to be with the team. But now you have a lot of wild cards because you've got kids who are going to one school the freshman year, their sophomore year, another school, junior year, another one, and then maybe finishing out their senior year someplace else. So you don't necessarily know how they're going to operate on a team for multiple years.
Yeah.
Because it's not part of what they've been used to. So they've got to put some guardrails, because ultimately I think it's going to really start affecting the NFL in the next couple of years, because you're going to have a lot of kids who are not used to being on one team year after year after year. They basically, to me, is, if you don't like it, I'm out.
Yeah,
I don't like this. I'm out.
That goes all the way down to, honestly, youth sports. So you go from youth sports all the way up through college, that you can just bounce if you don't like the situation. Oh, I don't like the coach, or I can get more money over there. I can get more perks over there. That that team has better jerseys and travel to better tournaments, or whatever it is. So ultimately, man, it's a piss poor version of college football and really college athletics. because basketball is the same thing, college basketball. And so you got to start capping it. You got to start putting rules to transfer. I've gone over my suggestions. I think you get one freebie in college, and if your head coach leaves, you can transfer again if you want to. And so, and that's I'll give a little shout out to Tyler Booker here. So when Nick Saban retired and Jalen Milroe, they both stayed after he retired and said, "Nah, we're staying." And a lot of those kids on Alabama stayed because those two stayed. And matter of fact, Booker for the bowl game, a lot of people were talking about not playing. Tyler Booker told his team, "If y'all ain't playing, y'all come through me, because y'all gonna deal with me with that bullshit." So, hence, I'm saying that because I like when I heard all that, I like that pick even more because he's a no nonsense. I think he's going to be a great Dallas Cowboy, but you don't see that attitude very much because these kids are conditioned now from year after year, school after school, program after program. Oh, I can just bounce if I don't like it, if I'm not getting what I want, and there's no reward for patience, really developing your craft because if you got to sit by someone behind that's better than you, and you learn from them. And what have what as a coach and as a player, I've always said, you play people better than you. You always get on the court with better than you. Well, these kids are going to where they're no longer anyone better. They're just happen to be the best talent that transferred in. So now they go straight to the top of the depth chart and they haven't earned anything. They haven't worked for anything. And so you get to the pros where it's the cream of the crop. I have a feeling, like you said, it's going to be a problem and they're going to struggle. I think they are. And I think the NFL is in for a rude awakening, especially with that quarterback position. But, we mentioned the slide by Shedeur, and I'm not saying that to get back to Shedeur. We said he was one game over 500. We all know why his number's getting retired because of nepotism and Deion's the head coach. It was the stupidest thing ever. And Cordell Stewart's the best quarterback in that program history. His number's not retired. Quinn Ewers played in 2 college football playoffs, winning quarterback. He goes undrafted, or I think he may have been drafted in the 7th round. No one talked about that slide. You want to know why? Because all these other people weren't paid to promote him. They weren't in his pocket, or he wasn't in their pocket, I should say. So it's not. Oh,
It's getting to the point where it's just.
I'm just. If y'all lose me, it's because of the weather.
So.
Yeah,
it is getting pretty bad out there. So I think we probably need to put our time for our commercial and move on to some different stuff.
Yeah, let's get to the Chevron Championship. Little golf talk before we get to NBA and NHL playoffs. We'll do that real quick. But if I'm not here when y'all come back, the weather's getting nasty outside. I'm just warning you. But all right, here we go. Let's hear from easyleadership.com. Here we go.
Have you heard of the DISC communication tool? Yes, most people in business have. But there is a new tool out there that is tailored for leadership teams. It is called the DISC Work of Leaders and focuses on 3 main areas: vision, alignment, and execution. This amazing assessment is not just a game changer. It is a business strategy necessity if you want to create sustainability. Let's be honest, a lot of executives spend many hours in HR dealing with people issues, and that happens because of reactive leadership. If you are sitting in HR trying to figure out what happened after the fact, then you are not able to concentrate on running your department or business, and it steals your time. Email us or call. It's free to talk about it and learn how to become proactive in your leadership. Big or small, we have a plan to build on your strengths and an action plan for your challenges. Join Eddie Schedule, our CEO and founder, for a quick video on what a report does for you. Head over to our website and scroll down to see this amazing video of the DISC Work of Leaders tool. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Sorry, I'm checking on my backyard. don't know if lightning hit the backyard or not.
Oh, you have a big boom.
Yeah, it happened. I don't know if you saw the flicker, but it obviously didn't take out the power because I'm still here. But that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I
think my
didn't.
neighbors
I
would.
didn't see the flicker.
Oh, well, yeah. All right. Chevron Championship, first major for the LPGA, happened right here in the Houston area in the Woodlands. All right. Was going to get tickets, but like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to pay for a wedding. So, and my truck died on me on Friday. So a lot of fun stuff happening. But Chevron craziest finish I've ever seen to a tournament. I don't. Did you watch it? Probably not. You were off in volleyball land up in Dallas. So
That's right. Got the dad shirt on right there. Dad squad.
by the way, you never wore anything like that for me. I'm just saying.
Yes, I did.
No,
Says it has our number and stuff on the back too.
there weren't any shirts like that when I played basketball. Just that's why you never wore it. I'm not saying
I
you
wore
wouldn't.
a half ball cap every time, so don't even start.
Well, that could have been for anybody.
It was for you though. So
Oh, there's some more thunder. All right. Is it raining where you're at? Can you hear it? Like,
yeah, we're getting a little bit now.
Oh, well.
It may get bad too because I got the. Yeah. We may have a short show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're hitting an hour, so it's not too short. But all right, so the Chevron Championship, 5-player playoff. So 5 people were tied for the league after 96 holes. Before they get to the playoff, there's a player. We'll have to find her. It was Judagam. She's from Thailand. I can't really say her last name, but so she has a chip on the backside of the green. It's a par 5 to put it in place for a birdie. She does what all of us have done. She chipped it. The ball moved 3 inches. She mishit it. She hit the ground before she hit the ball. And you could just see the life go out of her. And so she ends up getting par, as well as 4 others. And so they go to the playoff hole. They're all playing. It's a 5-some on the 18th hole. Like, that's the craziest part. Like, they're all playing at the same time. So one of the girls, par 5, gets second on. She's putting for eagle. Everyone else putting for birdie, except one. One went in the water. She was just short, almost went in the water. She was gonna have to chip in from where she was at. She didn't chip in. She was out of it. So 3 girls, birdie putts. All of them missed. The girl had an eagle putt, 3 putted, and parred. So one girl did hit the birdie putt because she ended up winning. I think it was Saigo. I think is her name. Saigo from Japan ends up winning it. So it was just a crazy from a botched chip to a 5. I've never seen a 5-person playoff. I've never seen 5 people play a hole in a professional event, which was really crazy. But here's my critique of the LPGA. I love the LPGA. Love to work for them one day. But I got to be honest. It feels like you're watching the Asian LPGA because all the top players are Asian. And I'm not saying anything about that. I was just wondering, where are all the American players? And I really think, and people might call me sexist or misogynist on this point, I think part of gaining the male audience in female sports, part of it is the appeal of the athlete and the attractiveness of the athlete. I hate to say that in female sports because you don't really have that in male sports But I think you do have that in a certain degree when women are watching male sports. You know, I remember my mom like saying Troy Aikman was hot and stuff like that. So like she's obviously been a lifelong Cowboys fan, but I could be wrong on that. That was long after y'all were not together, so don't worry about it, pops. But yeah, I just when you go down the leaderboard and you got Japan, Thailand, South Korea, China. Lindsey Duncan was the only American in the final. Then you got North Korea or South Korea, America. I don't even know what that is. Then China, then Spain, then South Korea, and then even the ones from the United States are also Asian, except Corda, and I think Lexi Thomas finished tied for 14th. So I hate to say, I just there's not a lot of appeal to watch. Like I was watching it with Linda, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna say anything. Is that a man or a woman?" Just based on how they're dressed and how they play. And she's like, "That's a dude," and I'm like, "No, that's a woman. That's a girl." And so there's something about the appeal of femininity and them being great at what they do while being feminine at it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here?
Well, does any guy watch beach volleyball?
Yes.
Because it's a great game.
Well, I will say beach volleyball, it is a lot of fun, but I will say they're probably more watching the scenery versus the talent on the sand.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just it's I don't, obviously I don't watch the LPGA, but I think it goes back to, you know, when you start talking about growing the game when they're doing football games overseas and all this stuff, it goes back to your whole thing. They're trying to grow the game. So there's different players. And the thing is about golf, it's not just an American sport. It's a world sport.
It's definitely a world sport.
And the thing is, at some point, certain players from certain cultures just get really good and can have a period where they are dominating the game. And right now, it sounds like the Western Pacific part of the country, or part of the world, I should say, is got some really good golfers. And I'll tell you, one of the best golf courses I ever played in was in Thailand. It was an amazing golf course. It was designed by Arnold Palmer too. So, so that's,
we know South Korea isn't going to dominate anyone in basketball, right? Or Thailand is it? So it's one of those sports that an individual can pick up and be of small stature or smaller than your competition. That's why, like baseball and Altuve, who's like 5'8", can be one of the most dominant players in Major League Baseball. There's certain sports that the size advantage gets taken out of it. But I think there is a certain appeal to seeing attractive people do great at their sport. Not like Anna Kournikova, where they're just beautiful and not good, right? Because she never won a major tournament. But if you're attractive and you're good and you're from that country, I think it lends you to invest in more in it. And I'm not saying sexualize the product. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go over the top with it. I was just kind of wondering, where are, one, the American women on the leaderboard, and two, like, where's the appeal? Because the vast majority of sports viewers are male. So how does the LPGA attract the male viewer when it's kind of not a product that you really want to watch per se? So unless you just really, really love golf and want to see all the golf you can. So
I think you're towing a very thin line here.
I think it's a thin line that is towed. 100%.
Because if you're what you're saying is, well, maybe they should go out there in bikinis and play golf.
That's no. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, you're getting awfully close to it, is what I'm saying. You're saying.
I'm not saying dress them as Hooter girls and watch them play golf. That's not what I'm saying.
Because there are sports out there like the football league, which actually is fun to watch, even though they're in pretty scantily clad.
Talking about the lingerie football league?
Yeah. Yeah, I
that's
don't even
not
know
what
if
I'm
that's
saying.
still
It's a professional organization. They're the top at what they do. I'm saying is where's the American dominance? It's on the men's side you have American dominance, and we love seeing it. And so number one, that's part of it.
I'm not going to agree with you on that. On golf,
yeah,
are we going to say
Scotty Scheffler is dominant?
Who else? Who just won the Masters?
Well, Rory just won the Masters after trying for like 15 years. But Scotty won it before him. You had, Tiger dominate for so long. Jack Nicklaus dominate for so long. And you've had your great players from other countries. But like in women's golf, you thought it was going to be Lexi Thompson for a while. Or, Nelly Korda is the number one player in the world. She is an American. So it was just an interesting question that kind of hit me. And when anytime I turn on the LPGA, it's just kind of like, okay, I feel like I'm just watching the LPGA, the Asian, Ladies Professional Golf Association, because there's no Europeans on there. There's no American players. It's all Asian players.
So basically what you're saying, we need some diversity in the LPGA. Where's your diversity program?
Something like that. All right. Go ahead. Take us to the NHL.
Well, and I've been watching the Vegas Golden Knights. They are in a battle right now, 1-1 against the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, the Knights trying to close this thing out. They're leading the series at 3-2. We've had some pretty close series so far. I mean, every single one in the Western Conference is right now it's 3-2. Winnipeg, St. Louis, Dallas 3-2 for Colorado, LA Kings, and
Dallas
Oilers
plays
3-2.
after that game you're watching.
What's that?
I said Dallas plays tonight after that game you're watching.
Yeah, so Dallas has a chance to close that out. So you've got a lot of game sixes with a lot of teams that can close it out. I think the Wild are battling hard right now. I think this one is probably going to go to a game 7. Now on the Eastern Conference side, a lot of things that we've already kind of known. The Panthers are really good. They've already moved to round 2. They closed that out 4-1 against the Lightning, which was a little bit of a surprise that they dominated the way they did. And on the other side of that was Washington taking that series against the Canadiens 4-1. They are in. They just started their game, or no, they didn't. They haven't. I think they play tomorrow night, but they'll be taking on Carolina. So you've had a lot more dominance on the Eastern side, or I should say lopsided series with Washington and then Carolina and then Florida.
Yeah,
the close one is obviously Toronto and Ottawa, 3-2 once again. So you've got a lot of things are going to be decided in the next few days. Who's going to move to this round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs? My picks are it's going to be Winnipeg and Dallas in round 2. And I really think Minnesota has a chance to close out the Knights. Or I shouldn't say close them out, but tie it up and then go to a game 7 where I think Minnesota's going to have a little bit of a advantage there. Of course, I'm saying this, and the Knights just had a breakaway and took the lead, so they must have heard me. So it's now 2-1. The Knights took over second period, 3:48 left in that game. So actually now it's starting to look like the Knights might take this and move on. The Oilers, I think, are the other team that's going to come out of round one and move on. But it's been these series have been a lot more competitive than they have been in the past, except for the Eastern Conference, obviously, with a lot of series 4-1. So, and speaking of the Stars, which is obviously our Texas team here, I think they were kind of on the ropes for a little bit. And I think Colorado was actually out skating them in the first two games. And I think the Stars started to realize, that this could be slipping away and really turned it on. And the last game that they played, the Stars really were out skating the Avalanche. Now the Stars have outshot the Avalanche pretty much 2-1 almost in every game, but Colorado has just been able to hang in there in some of these games. But I think the Stars come out of this and win it. I think they just have the faster skaters. I don't necessarily think the Stars have the better goalie play. I think it's about even, but I think the Stars are a little bit more dominant when it comes to their speed and just being able to get out ahead of the puck. So that's kind of where we're at with the NHL. I'm looking forward to round two. Like I said, next couple of days, a lot of things are going to be decided. And I still think it'll be the Stars in Winnipeg in the Western Conference, and then the Golden Knights and the Oilers coming out of Western Conference.
My head tells me the Stars series is going to go 7, and Dallas wins it at home in 7. I hope they close it out tonight, and I'm wrong on that. But yeah, Eastern Conference, you got 4 series that went 4-1, or I'm sorry, 3 series 4-1, all gentlemen sweeps. You mentioned you only got one that's going to a game 6, Toronto and Ottawa. I believe they play tomorrow night, as well as LA, Edmonton, and Winnipeg, St. Louis play tomorrow night as well. So, the Dallas series, man. So the game before 2 games ago, they get beat 4-0. Not a good look. They come out, score 6 goals in the last game. I think they scored the fastest goal in playoff franchise history in like 9 seconds. And then they had another one right after that. And so they came out with a sense of urgency. I hope they do that tonight. Now they're in Colorado. That's the big reason, or the biggest factor why I think they might be coming back home for a game 7. And, Colorado and Dallas always seem to meet in the playoffs. It's always a good series. But what you saw in the last games, you saw the big stars step up for the Dallas Stars. Rettinen had his first goal. You had Johnston. You had who had 2 goals? Crap, I'm brain farting. Should have had it pulled up here. But you had multiple goals by guys who hadn't scored all the series in the playoffs yet. So that's a positive for the Stars. I think Ottinger is starting to turn up the heat a little bit on getting to be a hot goaltender. And as you always like to point out in this game of sticks and pucks and ice, goaltenders make all the world of difference. So if Ottinger can really get hot, really starting the last game, moving forward, I think my pick to get actually to win the cup is the Stars. It is a homer pick, and I know that for a fact. But I love what the Stars are ultimately doing in in the last game, and hopefully they can carry that momentum. But hockey is one of those finicky games that momentum doesn't really carry from game to game. Every game is really within itself. And so because, as you know, and as you pointed out on the show before, it's it can always just be a little bounce here or there. A fraction of an inch can be the best or positive thing for happen for you, and just change the complete dynamic of a random bounce or a tip off a stick here. So it makes the game fun and exciting and puts you on edge, and that's why there's nothing like playoff hockey. I think playoff hockey is the best playoffs in professional sports. So, well, let's jump to NBA real quick. The NBA playoffs. You got the Thunder already moving on. They trounced the Grizz. They sweep them. The Nuggets are up 3-2 on the Clippers. They play later on tonight. They may be on right now. They may have just started. I'm going to get to the Lakers Timberwolves here in a second. The Rockets are trailing as the 2 seed to the Warriors. The Warriors really kind of mailed it in that last game, and I think they're going to try to do everything they can to close it out in Game 6 on their home floor tomorrow night. Cavs sweep the Heat. Pacers, gentlemen sweep over the Bucks. Want to talk about what happened after the game there. One of the big sports stories with Halliburton's dad as well as Giannis. Knicks and Pistons are playing right now. Knicks are up 86-75. Knicks lead that series 3-2. And Boston has already gentlemanly swept the Magic in their last game, beat them 120-89. Holy shit. That's
a whooping.
Yes. So I want to talk about the Lakers. All right. So a few months ago, we obviously had this huge trade. AD, Luka, LeBron. Some people had them going to the finals. They got to the 2nd seed in the West at one point. They ended up as the 3rd seed in the West in the playoffs. I never saw it. I didn't think they were going to be in. Guess what is happening to Luka right now? Can you guess what's happening to Luka by the Lakers fan base and the people critiquing the team? Can you guess?
Oh, I'm sure they're blaming him.
Well, they're saying he's out of shape. Wonder who said that. They're saying he doesn't play defense. I wonder who said that. Now, I'm not saying Nico was right and Nico should have. I don't give a shit what your justification is. You don't make that trade. But he's getting the same criticism. And it's the same thing I said after the finals last year. On this very show, as I said, the Celtics expose Luka on the defensive end. Until he has the guys behind him to make up for that, they can be competitive, they can advance in the playoffs, they can do all that, but he's going to need help on the defensive end. Or until he buys in and really gets his conditioning into tip-top shape and he plays okay on defense, be an average to above average defender, and the Mavericks will win a championship. LA is eviscerating him right now. The fan base is criticizing him right now.
Well, of course. I mean, if they can't talk about LeBron or the guys that have been there for a while, they got to look for a scapegoat, and it's just going to be interesting to me of how long Luka's going to last in LA.
I'm not convinced.
I just don't. Huh?
I'm not convinced he resigns.
Yeah, I don't think he does. I don't think it fits him. I think, and now with all this going on, I just think it's not going to work out, and I think Luka's going to move on. I don't know where he's going to go.
I'm going to put this out there right now. If Nico Harrison is gone, I can see him coming back to Dallas.
Well, I think Luka ultimately, deep down, would love to be back in Dallas. It was his home. It's where he started, and we know how he feels about it. Yeah, I just don't think he's an LA guy. I don't think he's big flash type, California, look at me type player. I think he's more of a get in there and grind and work hard, whine a little bit. But
and that's another thing the fan base and people out there in California are saying. He whines too much. He doesn't get back on defense. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. We tried to tell you. These were all the criticisms on him being he is a generational offensive talent, being he's a top 5 player in the league because his offense is so good, he is that guy when the ball's in his hand. He's not that guy on the other side of the floor. He is a whiner. He doesn't play great defense. And because the ball's in his hand so much, he almost has to take time off. But I want to talk about the Lakers a little bit here too. How about J.J. Redick playing his 5 starters the entire second half of the previous game? Just stupid, dude. Idiotic. As a basketball coach, I'm sitting there like, what the F are you doing? That's insane to me. That as an NBA coach, I don't care if you're a first-year coach, you've been around the game long enough. J.J. Redick should have been smarter. You don't play your team or your starters for 2 straight quarters with no rest. I don't care how many TV timeouts there are. I don't care how many timeouts you take. That was terrible on his part. And to me, it shows why he wasn't the right pick for that job. That's just me. I didn't like the hire. He's LeBron's guy. And if they really wanted to build something in LA, they would trade LeBron.
Yeah, I can't agree more. It's a dumpster fire. And I mean, I think we kind of all knew that Luka going there was not going to work.
Well,
Just
we didn't
because
all know. There's people predicting championships. They were like, hey, it's going to be
yeah,
Boston,
well,
LA in the finals and all that stuff. How asinine does that sound?
yeah, it goes to show why, to me, LeBron will never be in the same, at least my opinion, never in the same uh, podium as Michael Jordan was.
Well,
And
look at his 7
Yeah.
years in LA. He's got the bubble championship, which F that championship. That's like the 99 Spurs championship. I don't really count it. There's an asterisk next to it. Okay. Now Spurs took care of business. They won a bunch, so you can give it a little more credit. But he won the bubble championship. He's been bounced out of the first round 2 or 3 times. Didn't even make the playoffs twice. Whined about getting more help. Made excuses. The dude is a failure as a Laker. Don't even pass it. When you start talking about Laker greats, Dad, how many championships did Kobe win?
Yeah.
5. How many championships did Shaq win? 3. How many championships did Magic win? 4. Like when you start talking about Laker greats, West won multiple, Jabbar won multiple. When you start talking Laker greats, you talk multiple championships. This isn't the Dallas Mavericks. I love my Mavs, okay? I do. But if you win 1 championship as a Mav, it's like 5, it's like 2 or 3 as a Laker or as a Celtic because they've won so many. To me, LeBron in LA is a failure, point blank. And it's not going to get any better. They're not going to get a big man, because that's what they were saying. Rudy Gobert looked like God's gift to basketball last night for Minnesota. I think he had 23 points and 24 rebounds. After last year, Luka embarrassed his ass in the playoffs. The Mavs absolutely destroyed the Timberwolves in the playoffs. And they want to sit here and they played so bad, they made Rudy Gobert look like he's all NBA. It was piss poor. JJ has got to be better as a coach, and they got to get, as sad as it sounds, they got to get LeBron more help. They got to get Luka more help. 2 out of the top 10 players in the league need more help. I don't care. You got 2 out of the top 10 players in the league, you should make it out of the effing first round.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about, this whole thing about college players coming into the NFL who are bounced around all over the place. To me, that's why there's always been a question with, at least to me, of LeBron's loyalty to be a team player.
He's a coach killer too.
Yeah,
in 7 years,
I just think,
7 years as an LA Laker, he's had 4 coaches.
Yeah. So it's all about LeBron, and that's the problem. It's not about the team, and I'll compare them to the Cleveland Cavaliers. How many people do we know are stars on that team? How many are household
I
names?
mean, Donovan Mitchell is a star, 100%.
Yeah, he's a star, but how many household names?
I
I
mean,
could say
I'm
LeBron
gonna
in
say he's the only household name is Donovan Mitchell.
yeah, and so that team is playing to me as a team. Like I said, I picked them to take the championship. I don't think they're showing any signs of letting up on that. But when it comes to LeBron, it always goes back to he's he's a great player, but he doesn't gel like certain players. It's like I'll give you Shaq for comparison. Shaq he won championships with the Lakers and he won championships with the Heat.
Correct.
And and so but you never heard that Shaq wasn't a good team player. You never heard that and Shaq was a superstar in his prime. I mean, Shaq was the man. Everybody knew Shaq. And but he went to different teams, won championships, gelled with them because it was about the winning and not it's about me. Shaq has always been a fun, loving guy, just a fun guy to be around and to watch. He's been funny. He's dabbled in acting. He's done some things, but you never get the feeling with Shaq that it's all about him. With LeBron, that's all I ever get is that it is all about him. And the crap, I just watched one today where someone ran into him and he doesn't get the call and he literally is throwing a fit like a little 5-year-old kid in Walmart who didn't get the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip.
He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could literally, and I've heard this said before, you could literally put together a team of his former teammates and win championships. You got Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Kevin Love, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, Ray Allen. That team right there wins multiple championships. And so, like, to me, he's one of the greatest players of all time. And I don't have almost no love for LeBron James. Self-proclaimed, that stems all the way back in high school for me. But, man, it's one of those things that he always complains about not having enough. And to me, he doesn't he's just bigger and more athletic than everyone. Like, he doesn't have great ball handling skills. The one thing he's great at, he's probably top 5 at, probably top 3 is passing the ball. He's an incredible passer. He doesn't shoot the ball particularly well. And because he's a bigger and better athlete, he can finish over guys. But that's about it. Like, there's not a lot of skill to his game. He can't back down guys. Kobe would lock him up. There's random dudes that would lock him up. If you get him starting at a standstill and he doesn't get ahead of steam, he's like Juggernaut. You remember the X-Men Juggernaut? If he gets started, you can't stop him because his momentum's going forward. That was Juggernaut. That is LeBron James. But if you get him at a standstill, he can't go by. And so,
well, and I'm going to take this back to the systematic issue of what we've been talking about with these college kids now with the NIL. You take a look at LeBron, how he came out of high school. He was going to be the king. He was already on ESPN in high school. That this is the next Jordan. This is the next savior of the NBA. So it started, and he came in, and I'm not going to say that he felt he was entitled, but everybody treated him like he was entitled before he had done anything.
He was nicknamed the Chosen One. He nicknamed himself King James. They weren't given that. So
and
you don't give yourself
man. Yeah, it's a systematic issue of feeling being the anointed one before you have done anything yet. And I'll go back to Sanders and this whole thing. You can't anoint an athlete until they have proven themselves that they're worthy of being anointed that one. And I think with James, although he's a great player and he's won championships, there's always been a question of his loyalty. It started with the whole stupid my decision thing, that was such a public deal, and basically flipped his finger to the people in Cleveland that had supported him from high school on when that all happened. Now they forgave him when he came back and won a championship with them, I think. But
And
it
it is
was
again.
it's that whole problem with entitlement before or being anointed before you have won anything.
It's one of those things. Is LeBron is a mercenary for hire, and when you think about the greatest players in this league, they didn't do that. Could you? I just, and that's part of the reason why I don't like the guy. I think if he would have stayed in Cleveland the whole time, or at least the majority of the time, and he would have won one title there, because the title he won, he wouldn't have had Kyrie if he would have stayed there, because he left. The Cleveland went to shit. They get the first overall pick. They take Kyrie. He comes back, and Kyrie's on the team after being in the league a couple years. So, but LeBron wasn't even the best player on the Heat. Dwayne Wade was the best player on the Heat. He's never been the best player in his era. Steph Curry has been the best player in the last 10 years. And before that, it was Kobe. So he's just been playing longer than anyone else. That's why now he's played at a high level, but that's why he has the records. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Lakers end up doing moving forward. I'm not a huge fan of not just the Lakers, but I think if Luka is smart, he leaves. And could you imagine this? I don't know if it's possible, but let's say the Mavericks fire Nico. That part is possible. What if Luka doesn't sign the max? He leaves after next year. He re-signs with the Mavs, and they have a healthy Kyrie and AD. Could you imagine that? That would be crazy.
Well, I know the fans in Dallas would love it for sure.
I think so, and I think all would be forgiven, honestly. Especially if I think that team wins a championship. I think they'd be the favorites. But that would be a crazy scenario. So, all right. There's two subjects left on our list, and not going to spend a ton of time on them, but there's two that they're kind of hitting close to home here. The first one is multi-sport athletes on the high school level. Now, I'm going to preface this with I lettered in 4 sports in high school in my senior year, 3 sports my junior year, and before that I was basketball only. So I played multiple sports, multiple years, and granted I was at a smaller school. And here's my take on larger schools, and I want to get your opinion on this. One of the biggest statistics people reference in this argument on high school athletes playing multiple sports is, 85% of Division I athletes played multiple sports. And my counter argument is they're freaking Division I athletes. There's a reason why they're playing multiple sports, is that their talent and athleticism ultimately lends them to play multiple sports. Where I have an issue with this is when you get let's say, I had a point guard at one of the schools I was at. Good athlete, 6'2", 6'3", or I will say an average athlete. Good high school basketball player. Worked his tail off. Did everything he could. Goes to Midwestern State. If he would have been splitting time, he would have never went to Midwestern State. He wouldn't have had the skills developed. He wouldn't have the time developed. And so where I have issues with this a lot of times in the bigger programs, no matter the sport, whether it's football, baseball, tennis, golf, when you have high level teams, if you look at the makeup of that team, the majority of that team doesn't play multiple sports. So my question to you is it more beneficial for high school athletics in your experience as being you've watched volleyball, you watched me play basketball, you watched Dallas play hockey, you've been in different arenas in that. Is multi-sport athlete a must in today's arena because kids are going year round? There's no off season for kids anymore. And if you're not putting time into that sport, you're falling behind. And it's a sad place we're at, to be honest with you. I don't like where we're at with high school athletics and kids and youth sports and high school sports outside of the high school. Where do you fall on that as an observer on the high school athlete in specialization in one sport versus multi-sport?
There's two sides to this coin. And the thing is if you're really talented in one sport and you think that you have a chance, honestly, not because someone's pumping up so, and we've seen too many of them think that their kid's better than they really are. But if they honestly have a chance to do something and earn a living, or at least go to college with that sport, then I really think the concentration needs to stay in that sport. On the other hand, if they're good at one sport and they want to play something else, I think it should, you should encourage them to do that, because here's the thing, and high school is probably the only time in your life when you're going to get a chance to do something like that and experience the different atmospheres of, say, playing baseball versus playing basketball versus playing football, and get a chance in your life to enjoy it. And sometimes some really good athletes find out that, yeah, they're great at basketball, but they turned out to be even better at football. I'll take Robert Orr from, am I saying his name right? From The Blind Side?
That's
He
Michael
was
Orr.
Michael Orr, Big Mike. That's it, Michael Orr. He was a great basketball player too in high school. He dominated. Of course, he was probably taller than everybody else around and bigger, but he was a very good basketball player, but it didn't take away from what he did on the football field. So I think if you can do it, you should do it, because it's the only time in your life where you're going to get a chance to experience something like that. There's very few. You can count them probably on less than one hand, a multi-sport. The only two I can think of is Deion Sanders and Deion Sanders, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, and so I'm not against it. I just think you also, if there's a certain sport that you think you're going to try to move forward with, you have to give it a little bit of a priority when you can. I think it makes it tough on coaches. Obviously, I've seen that with you, is that you're waiting on certain players to get there because they're still playing football, and even certain coaches to take over their part.
Yeah, so
But I think that's the only time in life you're going to get a chance to enjoy that. So
yeah, I want to
don't.
give some clarity to what I'm trying to say here is, so you have different levels of players, right? You have your Division One guys that no matter what they do, their talent, athleticism, makes up for any lack of skill they have, right? Because you have certain sports that are very skill based. Baseball is very skill based. Okay. I went out for the baseball team my senior year, as you know. I could catch a ball, I could throw a ball. I couldn't hit a fucking baseball anymore. The game, that part of the skill had passed me by. As you know, I led the team in strikeouts and walks. You want to know why? Because I never swung the damn bat. So, but there's, you have your top level guys. They can do it regardless. The issue is where you have that tier. When you have your lower tier guys, no matter what they do, they're not going to be great at the sport. Or girls, the talent level. So to me, the bottom tier, yes, 100% play all you want. You're probably going to be a bench player on varsity, no matter what sport you're in. You're not going to see the football field, experience, be in locker rooms, all that stuff. Where I struggle with it in high school athletics is those kids that can be really good in that sport. And then they go to another sport and they leave and they don't work on their craft anymore. Like if you are a basketball player playing football because you just want to go play football, you want to experience something different, you want to play with your friends. Oh, that's cool. Support that. 100% I support that. But you still got to put time into your other craft. For example, if you want to play basketball, but you're primarily a baseball kid, cool. In high school, you're going to be in the basketball period because basketball, the season comes first. You still got to go hit during the basketball season and fall season. You still have to work on that craft. Where it gets an issue is when a kid leaves and doesn't work on that craft. That thinks they can leave and not do that anymore, and we think that's okay. And when we talk about in smaller schools, you got to share athletes. It just has to happen. 4A and below in Texas, I was fortunate at Caldwell. The new football coaches didn't like it. That 9 out of my 12 varsity guys were basketball only kids. They made that decision before I got there under the previous coach, and it was a unique situation at the school I was at. But when you look at those top level, top performing programs, doesn't matter whether it's football, basketball, baseball, golf, softball, you look at the majority of their players, they all focus on that sport for the most part. And that's where I struggle with it. I support kids who make that decision to do it, and I'll be the biggest cheerleader on the sideline. I'm hoping you don't get hurt and you jeopardize something you've been working for over here if you decide to do that later in your high school career. But I hope you do well, and I hope you're successful, and I hope you have helped that team be successful. But what scares me is when you forget about the other sport that you're better at, and you're not working on the craft anymore. And when that's a struggle for me as a coach. And, it's one of the things I don't like fighting anymore in coaching and teaching is trying to explain that. Because if you leave, and I had I'm going to give a shout out to Coach Scott Biggett. He's not coaching anymore, but Scott told me, and he explained it to his players like this when he was coaching. When you leave and you're not working on your craft, you're out of the gym for a basketball player 6 months out of the year almost. Over the course of a high school career, that is 2 years not in the gym. You cannot make that gap up. So whatever sport it is, so if you're a football player and you go play basketball and you're not working on football at some point, those kids that are still in football are getting stronger, faster, more agile. And ultimately, I had a kid at Lake Creek. I don't know if you remember my last year. He was our backup point guard. Little dude ended up transferring the day after the season. If you remember that crazy last year. Don't want to get into why. But his mom, we had team dinner at their house that last week before the playoffs. And she's like, man, these kids used to just run people off the court in AAU. And I go, well, yeah, because y'all were faster, stronger, and bigger than most kids in 7th and 8th grade. Your kid is 5'9". He's not bigger, faster, stronger. And during football season, you're not putting him on the court. He's not at shot clubs. He's not in the weight room. Well, he's in the weight room with football, but he's not on the court. He's not going to, shoot 360 and putting up 1,000 shots a day. He's got surpassed. But during basketball season, you got him at Footwork King going after practice, or matter of fact, I think he even tried to miss a Saturday practice for going to Footwork King. And credit to the kid. He ends up going to play in college for football because the family ended up being a football family. And we kind of understood that. But if you're going to be multi-sport, and it's the hardest job in high school sports because sports are year-round now. I hate that it's like that. Kids never get to be kids. What have you been doing the last 5 weekends, Dad?
Volleyball.
You've been at volleyball. It's club season, right? And I don't think you have a weekend off until our wedding.
Pretty much. We have a weekend off this weekend, I think.
Okay,
finally.
So I wish we'd go play golf, but I got a crap ton of homework I got to do, so that's out of the question. But it's a tough question, and it's this thing I struggle with as a coach. I do try to say the right things. I encourage kids. I even talk kids out of quitting football, or tried to talk them out of quitting football and stuff like that before, and because you don't want to see a kid give up on something they enjoy doing, and of course going that route. The second part of this conversation, and I want to try to wrap this up pretty quick because we have gone pretty long tonight, is the hardest thing for me to see as a coach is seeing parents not support and do everything they can for their kids' dream to play their sport. So the biggest thing that frustrates me in my particular situation is when I see parents not wanting to give their kids rides or pick them up after school or take them early. It's really, really frustrating because as the school I'm at's a 6A basketball program. We're the highest level. It takes a lot of work to be successful or even be competitive at the 6A level, especially when you don't have the size, athleticism, and talent as other schools. And you as a parent, I'd like for you to kind of comment on, do you believe when your kid commits to a sport or theater or band or anything of that nature that they're pursuing, that essentially you're committing to it as well as a parent? Would you agree with that?
Of course you are, because it costs money for most of these things, and you're going to end up spending your money. And I mean, we've had those types of discussions. That if we're going to spend money, hard-earned money, which some of these sports cost quite a bit, then if we're going to commit to that, then you're going to commit to working hard. And so that's a give and take. But the parents have to commit the resources. It's not like they're on a professional team. We are the Uber drivers. We are the logistics, the people who supply the food, everything. So it's the bottom line is that we all are. Everybody has to be committed, and the kid has to show that. Because like I said, some of these sports are outrageous in what they cost, and I agree with I saw a meme with Kevin Hart the other day. You mean I have to pay to get into the tournament that I paid for my kid to play in?
Yeah. So, well, I'm obviously talking more high school sports, and that's normally free on delivery, right? But because the paradigm has changed in high school athletics, is when you can go back when I was in high school, there was an open weight room, but it wasn't necessarily a full expectation that you were there. We had open gyms in the summer, but I went to one basketball camp, with one of my friends before my senior year at Purdue University. But there wasn't, but in high school there at that point in time, the off season was the off season. You played basketball, you worked on some skills, but you didn't do too much. And in the summer, you were a kid. You let me take the truck and go see if there's an open run at the park or up at the old gym or something. But now it's a year-round job, and parents leaving 8th grade going into high school, it's a whole different world. And you have to, I can't tell you how many times, Pops, and this is sad to hear, that I've heard kids tell me my mom or dad doesn't want to get up early to give me a ride. And to me, that's piss poor. If your kid is more committed than you as an adult, that's sad. And you just said you're the ride, you're the logistics. Yeah, guess what? If your kid's not there when, let's just, for example, shot club in the morning, guess what every other school in the school district is doing? They're at shot club in the morning and they're getting better, and your kid did not. And you can't get that time back. And so that ability to get better is lost in that time period. And so if your kid's not playing basketball, if your kid's not playing baseball, and if they're not working on their craft at every opportunity they can for free at the high school, you're losing out. You're talking, club sports. I know hockey was super expensive with Dallas. I'm sure volleyball ain't cheap either with Holland. And so, but if you're a parent and you end up seeing this and your kid is playing high school athletics, understand the bar has been raised, and it's actually been raised by other parents because of the expectations of being successful and winning, and the pressure that a lot of people put on wins and losses for high school programs. It's actually a vicious cycle, to be honest with you. And ultimately, if your kid commits, you're committing, and you need to do everything you can to support your kid in that pursuit. That's just my personal opinion. And, as a coach who could be in it for the long run or could be done after tomorrow, after someone sees this, who knows? But, just understand what you're getting into. We all want to see our kids do great. We all want to see them do well. And for me, it's always been a privilege coaching high school kids, man. It's some of the most fun I've ever had, and seeing them be successful after putting in so much work and us asking them so much of them. So, but all right, let's get out of this son of a biscuit eater.
All right, then.
So
I don't have anything else.
Well, appreciate you riding along those last 10 minutes on that. Might have been longer. Who knows? But all right, folks, we'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. live, of course. And if you're watching, still looking for that radio job, you can hire me. Feel free.
Sponsors. We need sponsors.
We need sponsors too. All right, we like more than just easy leadership. Matter of fact, if you're a business who wants to sponsor and you want to hire Easy Leadership because you saw us, maybe the man will give you a discount. Hell, I don't know. But at the end of the day, yeah, we're having fun with this.
All right.
And we love y'all. We appreciate y'all sticking it out. And peace. We out of here.
All right. Good night.